Now it's Jamie Miller, CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, good afternoon or good morning, Gerard. Good to be with you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on. So give us an update from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. What's going on from a business perspective down there?
Well, I'm glad to report our economy is still strong. Our local communities have done well coming out of the pandemic. Our industries have made some big announcements lately, starting with Ingalls Shipbuilding, who announced a multi-bundle contract for Navy ships over the next decade. And just recently, our Harrison County Development Commission announced a $540 million capital investment from PCC Gulf Chem that'll be located here in Pass Christian. So it's been a lot of positive news wrapping up 2024.
Yeah, well, that's good news. Good news. And the state overall is doing well. We've witnessed a number of economic development announcements. The last couple of years in particular, a flurry in them, multiple billions of dollars being poured into our state. We must be doing something right. We're getting the attention of, global companies that are saying that Mississippi's a good place to do business. Yeah,
Gerard, I had the opportunity to work at Mississippi Development Authority for about 5 years. I know you've been close to it with some of your board memberships in Madison County. It seems like a switch was flipped after the pandemic. I think business and industry was ready to come forward and start making some investments. In Mississippi, thankfully, given our leadership in the state, was positioned to take advantage of those things. So Mississippi's been a winner in this new economy or this current economy, and I look forward to continued success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're seeing as much a cooperation among the various economic development outlets across our state, working with Mississippi Development Authority, the governor's office, et cetera. It seems like that's paying dividends, Jamie.
It certainly is. Of course, I'm worried about our region here on the Gulf Coast,
sure.
And, which is a mix of tourism and industry and all sorts of things. But it's certainly positive when we can see these other announcements happening in Madison County, in Lauderdale County, Columbus, Lowndes, North Mississippi. It really just brings and elevates of confidence that I think our leaders have in the direction we're headed. And we've seen it, you can talk about education, you can talk about taxes, you can talk about workforce. Mississippi clearly seems to be on a good track, and we're starting to see that return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, what do you have to say, if anything? And if you don't want to talk about it, I certainly understand about this seafood situation that's going on with the restaurant community on the Gulf Coast.
Well, I would say that visitors should expect, and we expect, transparency when we go to a restaurant or when we buy seafood at a deli about what we're buying.
Yeah.
And I think a large majority of the restaurants and seafood places on the coast are doing it right. But anytime you have a question mark around that, I think regardless, you have to do something about it. So I've spoken with several of our industry leaders, others, and legislators. We're going to do something this year. I hope we finish with a labeling law or something that's going to put this question to bed about what you can expect to eat when you come to the Gulf Coast. And look, certainly imports are a big part of that. There's no way to feed the USA purely on American or Gulf seafood. We have to rely on imports, and there's good seafood in other places. You certainly ought to know what you're eating when you order something at a restaurant.
Okay. Well, that's something that's got obviously a lot of attention across the state, and I know in particular across the Gulf Coast. And I believe you're right that the vast majority of the restaurants are transparent and do it right. Honorable people. You got maybe a few that need to step their game up a little bit, and I agree with you that their patrons deserve to know and just need the truth. I think it's pretty simple. The world changed on November 5th, certainly in the state, in the country, with the elections. How are you and your business members, the business community, how are they thinking about the incoming administration? Are they optimistic about this?
Yeah, we recently had our executive committee retreat, and we talked a lot about preparing ourselves, preparing the region for this change in this new federal administration. I think it's going to be positive. I think it's attention to the regulatory environment, the tax environment. Those are all things that seem to point us in a good direction, and we want to be positioned as a region to take advantage of that. I think energy is another issue that's going to play a big role in our economy.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of positive things to look toward. But if we're not positioned, if our region, our state's not positioned to take advantage of it, then we'll miss something.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've certainly talked a lot about the show is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is set to expire, the individual provisions, and that also would affect most small and mid-sized business operators who operate as pass-through entities. That's all set to expire at the end of next year. Are they voicing that as a priority to make sure those get extended or made permanent?
Yeah, they are. So we do a CEO business survey of our CEOs and our businesses. We're just gathering that final information. And, of course, we try to keep a close relationship with our congressional delegation and the folks at the state. But there's no question people were preparing for a different outcome given this election. And now that the results are in and we're going to have a Trump administration and hopefully, I think by all accounts, there's going to be a priority put on extending those tax cuts and making sure that we don't unnecessarily create barriers to those small businesses and businesses that should be thriving in this economy, not being held back.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got, as you know, hard to believe the legislature will be gaveling in here pretty soon, less than a month. Anything that you and your organization is working on that you're expressing to your delegation on the coast that you'd like to see get done?
Well, I think we're always paying attention to the regulatory environment in Mississippi in particular and the tax structure. And, of course, there's been a lot of talk about fully eliminating income tax. There was a pretty robust discussion last year about Medicaid expansion. PERS, which impacts, our municipal and county government down here. So we're certainly keeping those conversations in mind. I think the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund is somewhat unique to the lower 6 counties in Mississippi. That's a settlement fund that gets spent each year in the lower part of the state. We continue to want to advocate for transformative economic development projects on the Gulf Coast, and that is one fund that the legislature determines each year in their appropriation. So we'll watch that closely, and then we'll also pay defense on a handful of things that may pop up during the session. So we will have a presence in the Capitol. We'll stay connected to the leadership in the Capitol. And then, as the session goes on, we hope to make sure that no harm is done first, and then also to promote those things that would advance Mississippians' quality of life and our economy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do no harm first. That's the main thing. You always get a little nervous when they gather up because they get busy, and the next thing you know, you got 3,000, 3,500 bills that get at least drafted and introduced. Now, the vast majority of those don't even make it out of committee. But it's a lot to keep up with, and especially business people that may be concerned about something that would affect them.
Yeah, and that's what our organization likes to pride itself in, is we do weekly legislative updates to our members. It's not possible for an individual business. I mean, certainly other large businesses will have their own team and maybe even folks pay attention to it. But a large number of our businesses don't have somebody in the Capitol. I mean, they read what they can see in the newspaper. And so we do a deeper dive and try to make sure that we're paying attention to committee meetings and how those bills are drafted. And you're right. Thank goodness it's difficult to get a law passed because there's 3,000 plus bills that get introduced. Everybody's got a good even the good ideas sometimes have bad consequences, unintended consequences. And so, we play a direct role in trying to referee some of those things and make sure that our membership is aware so that when necessary we can apply some pressure to maybe defeat a bill or maybe get it past the finish line. Yeah,
got you. Jamie, thanks for calling in. Really enjoyed the discussion. You have a a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks a lot.
You do the same. Take care.
We're coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio.